As I mentioned in a previous video, the MATLAB code that I finished creates a .txt file that contains all of the x, y, and z coordinates of each point in the combined point cloud. Upon importing that into MeshLab, this is the result. As you can see, there's still a bit of noise, especially up top here, that I'm going to attempt to remove before we get started with the mesh creation process. I am also going to remove the walls of the base of the statue, as I found that it made it a little more difficult to create the mesh for the statue, and ultimately modeling the statue is my goal anyways. So in order to do this, I'm going to select this tool right here to select vertices, and then work my way on deleting all these unwanted points in the point cloud. So after removing most of those unnecessary points, this is what I'm left with, which is much cleaner looking than what we started with, even after the noise reduction in the MATLAB code. I ended up increasing the point size here just to make it a little easier to see what I was doing. So now we can move on to the actual process of creating the mesh. And the first thing you have to do is go to the normals, curvatures, and orientations tab in the filters section, and then compute normals for point sets. The goal here is to make sure that all of the arrows, which are currently not in view, are pointing the same direction. So give me 1 second and I'll make sure those arrows are visible. So this took a little while of just trial and error, but eventually I was able to find a value for the neighbor number where all of my normal arrows would be pointing in the same direction. In this case, I chose the outside. So as you can see, they all are normal to the outside of the shell, pointing outwards. So now we can move on to the next step, which is again going into filters, but this time going into remeshing, and then into the screened Poisson's surface reconstruction. And from here, click apply, and it will generate a mesh. Now, I had to mess around with this a little bit in order to get something that works right. So I will show you my working mesh in a second, but for now this is what this looks like. It is also possible to clean this up, so let me get to the correct values and then I will be right back. And doing some cleaning up, this is what I ended up with. Obviously it's not the most perfect mesh, but I do think it captured the shell fairly well, especially when viewing it from the right side of Testudo. One thing that it is lacking is obviously there's a gap here in the scans for some reason, which led to this interesting shape, and then it also failed to recognize the Testudo's head as a 3D object and more so just overlaid a flat mesh area on top of it. That is something I'm going to have to work on with my and learn more about this software in order to get better. But I also, with the more detailed scans I'm planning on doing of the statue, I'm hoping that this will improve in the future as well, just with more data points in this area. In order to do cleaning, what you do is you select this option here, and then you are able to highlight different cleaning options. So this is just a little extra that doesn't really belong there. This is the back of Testudo's leg, and then I can select here to delete the faces and the vertices, just to make sure that those points don't stay. And continuing to do this will help me get a better mesh. However, I think in order to have a very good mesh, I'm going to have to continue taking more scans and just gathering more data. But in the meantime, this is what I am left with, and I look forward to continuing to try to get better at this process. Thank you so much for listening and watching my whole data collection and generation process. And I will get back to you with more progress soon.